Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to give this talk. Grateful for the opportunity. It's quite exciting to be revisiting the Illinois tree scenario after such a long time. I was just about to give you some background. More than 3 decades ago, I worked with Louis Iverson, who some of you may know, at the Illinois Natural History Survey in the Department of Forestry in Urbana-Champaign. My primary assignment was, as was mentioned, to estimate and map the degradation of tropical forest biomass. And a minor component was to assist Louis in his seminal work on the Illinois Plant Information Network. So I was also involved in a study estimating species richness in Illinois, which I'll touch upon later. But today, my main focus will be on the Quercus genus. As many here may know, oaks are being squeezed out by maples and other mesophytic species all over the eastern US, mainly because not enough space and light are available for oak seedlings to compete. And my talk will focus on the climatic aspects of oak dynamics through the lens of macro scale models. So I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues here, Matt Peters, Stephen Matthews, and Andy Gowerty. All right, just to give you a quick outline of my talk in my presentation, I'll first give you some historical background of Illinois vegetation and touch upon some previous work, and then explain our modeling strategy leading to the Climate Change Tree Atlas, and more recently, the Silvics of North America update that I'm involved with. Then I'll talk briefly about the global history of oaks and then discuss the climatic response of Illinois oaks by showing you maps of projected changes and their suitable habitats and migration potential. And finally, I'll summarize the overall trend. Okay, before talking about the current and future climates, it's always important to understand the past. This is from the Canadian Geographic and shows the extent of ice that covered North America at the peak of the last glacial maximum, approximately 22,000 years ago. As you can see, the Northeast and East Central Illinois, as most of you know, were ice covered. And next, I traced the Illinois vegetation history starting from the last ice age. I made a timetable of events based on the work by Taft, Anderson, and Iverson. Just to give you some idea of how things progressed in Illinois, approximately 14,000 years ago, the tundra vegetation covered most of Illinois, extending up to Williamson County in the south. And then followed by the spruce fir and the spruce pine forests. And about 9,000 years ago, deciduous forests started to invade, followed by the oak, hickory, and the prairie species. Then between 5,000 and 8,000 years ago, savanna-like habitats started to appear. And after that, increased moisture led to increase in forests in the southern parts of the prairie, and then fire, periodic droughts, and grazing helped maintain grassland in many parts. And the upland forests were oak hickory dominated, and the bottomland mostly of cottonwood, green ash, hackberry, and sycamore, and also the bottomland oak hickory, bur oak, swamp oak, pin oak, and so on. And with regard to landscapes, the pre-European landscape was mostly local perturbations and regional effects, which formed a dynamic mosaic of forests and prairie within a wilderness context. And the post-European landscape was, mainly, intense land use practices with small local remnants of native vegetation surrounded by large-scale agriculture and urban landscapes that we are quite familiar today. So at the time of the Euro-American settlement, approximately 42% of Illinois was forested. And currently it is mostly agriculture, with 76%, and forests about 12%. And within this, the oak hickory forest forms the bulk, 68%, followed by elm ash cottonwood, about 24%. And these estimates are based on the forest inventory and analysis data, which we use extensively in the Forest Service for doing many of our modeling efforts. All right. I want to mention that I was involved in a fun study at the Illinois Natural History Survey with Louis Iverson, where we estimated Illinois species richness using 33 botanically well-surveyed counties to predict the richness of 69 not so well-surveyed counties based on climate, land use, soils, and other features. And the darker colors here are the 33 well-surveyed counties. And we estimated the number of species yet to be discovered based on the regression model. It was published in Diversity and Distributions in 1998, so that was quite some time ago. Not sure how these numbers have panned out. Hopefully, at least it has given some incentive for Illinois Native Plant Society botanists to go and find new species, especially in southern and west central Illinois, where we predict a lot more species waiting to be discovered. All right, now all that was in the past, and I want to focus on our current modeling strategy to assess climate change impacts on tree species and show you some of the outputs of our efforts to understand the dynamics of tree species habitats and their migration potential. So we use relative abundance based on the forest inventory analysis data to first model climatic habitat suitability based on climate topo interactions, and then compute colonization likelihoods based on the current abundance, historical migration rate, and propagule generation times of species. And the climatic habitat suitability model HQ assumes no migration constraints, and the migration model CL limits the colonization of these suitable habitats. And these two components are most suited for understanding habitat distribution and colonization patterns at continental or macro scales. And we use this dual combination for the new updated Silvics of North America update, which is a cooperative project between US, Canada, and Mexico. And I'll be showing you the outputs based on this study today. All right, we still need a decision support system to account for unmodeled factors. This is a scoring system we use to account for unmodeled biological and disturbance factors, 12 disturbance and 8 biological factors, and that can modify the outcome of habitat and migration models. We are currently in the process of developing models to understand regional and local scale dynamics of disturbance. To ask the question, how does regional and local patterns vary from macro scale trends? This is still a work in progress, and I won't be talking about this today. All right, based on our multi-stage modeling scheme, we have produced the Climate Change Tree Atlas, which some of you here may be familiar with. This is version 4, so it's been around for quite some time. In fact, the first version went online in 2000. We also have regional summary tables. There's a recent edition, which are based on the summary analysis of 134 tree species in the eastern US, and is available for various geographic regions, from national forests to individual states. And you can download a PDF or Excel file for Illinois, for example, you get a table of states, and this will give you various details about what's happening in Illinois based on our modeling effort. So it also based partly on the Tree Atlas, an assessment by the Nature Conservancy warns that even though climate change can enhance the conditions for some native species like sweet gum, winged elm, and post oak, these are based on partly on our tree atlas here. The others may fare poorly, like pignut hickory, black willow, American basswood, pin oak, chinquapin oak, and so on. And also warns of invasive species and pathogenic pests in the future. All right, on to oaks at last. Before jumping to the modeled maps, let's go back 56 million years ago. Oaks evolved from a single undifferentiated northern hemispheric population into roughly 435 species that are found today on all continents except Australia and Antarctica. And interestingly, approximately 60% of all Quercus species live in the Americas, and 40% of all the world's oaks are in Mexico and Central America. So oaks have been called the evolutionary success story, where microevolution and macroevolution are combined with hybridization to make oaks one of the most adaptable species over geologic time. So we know that oaks are not doing very well currently and are being squeezed out of the understory due to lack of space and light. This has been mainly attributed to a decrease in fire frequency, increase in invasive woody shrubs, herbivore overpopulation, and a turn towards wetter conditions favoring more mesic species in the understory. So the pressing question remains, how will oaks adapt under ongoing and increasing anthropogenic threats in the era of rapid climate change? So oaks have acquired, as we know, various ecological traits and life history characteristics over the eons, and may have many tricks up their sleeve, like adaptation with via standing genetic variation, phenotypic plasticity, and the gene-environment response, though these could be either adaptive or even maladaptive, and also adaptive gene flow, mainly through hybridization. Therefore, oaks are an interesting genus to watch as it adapts to future disturbances. And I'll now focus on one aspect of that, climate change. All right, so to the crucial question, how will oaks fare in Illinois? I'll be focusing on the following species. I have grouped them as under white oak group and red oak. And to give you a little bit of a background on the models used for the updated Silvics of North America outputs, the first step was to combine the inventories of US, Canada, and Mexico, and also update our HQ model. It's now called the multi-model ensemble because we use 5 data-driven models using different flavors of what's called bagging and boosting algorithms, and only values greater than 0 were averaged among the models to capture the main trends and to minimize the fuzzy noise. And we also use an updated migration model, which now estimates colonization likelihoods of gaps within the current distribution, as well as the migration beyond the current species boundary. And we combine the HQ and CL outputs for end of century HQ and CL combinations for moderate and high emission climate scenarios at 20 by 20 kilometers across North America. And I want to dwell a little bit on the legend to help you understand how we have combined the HQ and CL maps. Both the habitat quality and colonization likelihood were reclassified into 3 classes, low, medium, and high. And the key points to remember are the shades of green indicate where species is currently found and will remain in the future. These are the HQ low occupied, HQ medium occupied, and the HQ high occupied. And then the shades of gray indicate suitable habitats where the species is not likely to migrate naturally by the end of the century. So these are the HQ low, CL null, that is colonization is null, then HQ medium, CL null, and HQ high, CL null. And the remaining colors, shades of yellow, blue, and pink, are where the species may naturally migrate to by the end of the century. So what we can expect, and these are the low, medium, and high, and also the shaded based on these characteristics of the models. The reason I'm going to show, let's start with post oak. I'll explain this species a little bit and then race through the other species. I don't know how much time I have left, maybe about 7-8 minutes or so. So this is, I'll show you first the current distribution according to FIA, and what going all the way from very low absent to very high abundance, relative abundance. And then the boundary here you see are the Little's range maps, which was done in the early 70s, I think. And then I also have given you the R square, so you just get an idea of the strength of the model. And then I'll show you the moderate climate scenario. And then again, remember the shades of green are where the species are found and will likely remain in the future. And the shades of gray indicate where the species are not likely to migrate naturally by the end of century. And the rest of the colors here indicate where it can migrate by the end of the century. And then I'll focus on Illinois so that you get the picture of what's happening in Illinois according to our models. And then I'll also show you the high emission scenario and the changes from the low to the high based on our models. All right, and so now I'm going to kind of zoom through various species. Next, we do the white oak. Let me see, this is kind of coming up in the way. Okay, this is better. All right, the white oak, again, notice that right now, Illinois has got quite a bit of white oak present, but under future scenarios, white oak, especially under moderate scenario, the white oak is not predicted to do very well. And most of the dynamics is up in northeast, up into Canada, where we have most of the habitat qualities moving to, but still no chance of migration by the end of the century unless there is some assisted kind of a push. And so oaks are not going to do very well in Illinois, especially under moderate climate. But under future, you have some low quality habitats that are occupying. And then bur oak. Currently, we have some bur oak, but under moderate scenario, we have some low quality habitats and also some medium quality habitats. And especially under the high emission scenario, the habitats for and colonization likelihoods for a bur oak increases, especially in the north and central Illinois. And then chinkapin oak, notice that the R square is a little low here. And then again, under future conditions, the high scenario provides more habitats for climatic and terrain suitability in Illinois compared to the moderate. And then swamp chestnut oak, again, barely touching Illinois today, but under future scenarios, you don't see much of a change. Under both scenarios, it seems to skirt the southern border here. And then overcup oak, again, not much at present, but under future scenarios, you start to see some colonization and also some gray, which shows that there will be habitats available that may not be colonized by end of century. And then now moving to the red oak group, we have the northern red oak, and we have quite a bit of northern red oak in Illinois today. And there's not much of a change under future scenarios. We have some low quality habitats coming up, and there's not much of a change between the low, moderate, and the high emission scenario. Then the southern red oak, we see some movement here under both moderate and high scenario. Not much of a difference, but a little bit creeping northward. And then the black oak, currently we have some black oak, but under future conditions, it seems to improve habitats for and colonization likelihood for black oak under both scenarios. And then blackjack oak, again, especially under high scenario, we have some high quality habitats in pink that are likely to be colonized, along with the other ones that may not reach there by the end of the century. Northern pin oak is an interesting species. We have some presence in northern Illinois, but under future scenarios, we don't seem to have any habitats left for northern pin oak. And scarlet oak for currently just skirting the border and is likely to remain so under future scenarios also. Cherry bark oak, again, we have some movement from just in the southern regions. We have some movement under both scenarios. Shingle oak, again, it seems to do pretty well under future scenarios. And then the willow oak, again, in the southern regions, just barely in the south. And then the pin oak seems to do well under both scenarios, very similar. And Natal oak, excuse me. Currently, according to the Little's range and also FIA, it's not present in Illinois, but I've heard some reports that it is present. But under future scenarios, you may just get a few in the south, according to, at least from a climate point of view. And then the water oak is currently not present in Illinois. I wanted to show a couple of species of oaks that will find habitat in Illinois by the end of the century. And so water oak is one of those. And another interesting species is live oak, nowhere near Illinois at present, but can find suitable habitat. So there could be, if it's assisted by, it can have some suitable habitats that can be colonized with assistance. All right, so I'm going to summarize. I think I'm almost to the end of my talk here. To summarize, in Illinois, most oaks seem to be poised to do moderately well in terms of climatic habitat suitability and migration capabilities. And except in the white oak group, we have the ones in red here. The white oak loses habitat, especially under moderate scenario. But also swamp chestnut oak, only marginal gains over lower quality habitats. The others do, varyingly well. And in the red oak group, the northern pin oak, the habitat seems to disappear from Illinois. And also scarlet oak and willow oak have negligible gains under future scenarios. However, it's important to keep in mind that these do not take local and regional disturbances into account, as I mentioned earlier. So this is a macro scale study. And so what can we conclude from this macro scale study? Oaks are an iconic genus to monitor for changes in vital parameters under climate change. And Illinois is at the edge of the eastern, more mesophytic forests and the drier prairie. So it can serve as a barometer for climate change monitoring. And so, for example, how will some of these oaks that skirt the Illinois border, like swamp chestnut oak, overcup oak, southern red oak, scarlet oak, cherry bark oak, and so on, fare if it gets more droughty or wetter in the future? So, So Illinois is in a very interesting place to monitor some of these changes. And also climate-wise, based on our macro-scale models and its past evolutionary successes, many oak species in Illinois are relatively well poised for future changes. But the interplay of fire frequency and drought frequency will continue to be crucial for oak success. And also the interactions among climate change, commercial land use pressure, and other disturbances like pests, diseases, and herbivores are likely to impact oaks negatively. And we have seen how this genus, which is started as an evolutionary success story, will fare in the future. We have to see how it does, and Illinois will be one of the key states to monitor the dynamics. And with that, thank you very much.